farewell reception to Ambassador Dr. Palitha Kohona, the permanent representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations, was held at the prestigious Harvard Club in New York on February 21st with the attendance of very distinguished gathering.
Mr. Luz, I would like to ask you, today's event tonight, Dr. Palitha Kohona's, farewell gathering. Is there anything that you would like to talk about it?
Well, we know Dr. Kohona for years and years. Our foundation has a publication called the Stewardship Report on Connecting Goodness, and Dr. Kohona was one of the first ambassadors that had a column on that platform and began to write. And we've known him since the tsunami, and we've been in his home in Colombo, and we've been in his home here in New York, and we feel that he's just the most amazing man. His compassion, his wisdom, his caring for the people of Sri Lanka is so deep, and I've been very, very much touched by Dr. Palitha Kohona, and I'm very sad he's leaving New York, and I hope to remain his friend for life.
Timothy Jayasundara, one of the key organizers of this event. I'm going to ask Dr. Jayasundara, could you please share about tonight's event, and also if you have something to say about Dr. Palitha Kohona?
Great. I think we wanted to give him a really big farewell. He has been part of our lives for many years now, and I think it would be fair to say there's no one represented Sri Lanka better in the United Nations, both from his education, his knowledge of the world, his knowledge of the people of the United Nations, from his previous career, even in the UN and in the Australian Foreign Service. Represented this country with just extreme distinction. So we wanted to give him a farewell of equivalent proportions, and we couldn't think of a better place than to do it than the Harvard Club. And we were overwhelmed with people who wanted to attend the event, and we wanted to give it, do the event in the spirit of what he is, and that is a diplomatic, conservative, but adventurous person, and has given so much for his country, and lived a comfortable life to serve his country, and we wanted to encapsulate that tonight, and hopefully we'll do that as we go forward tonight.
We're gathered here today to celebrate the services rendered by Ambassador Dr. Palitha Kohona as Sri Lanka's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York for nearly half a decade. Hailing from the picturesque town of Mandalay, the foundation for Dr. Kohona's illustrious career in public service was established during his high school days at St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia, an elite private boys' school in Colombo. Dr. Kohona proved to be a true all-rounder in school, excelling in academics, sports, and other extracurricular activities. He was awarded the prestigious Dialgus Award for receiving the best ordinary level results and had the distinct honor of captaining both the Sinhalese and English debating teams. For his contributions, Dr. Kohona was awarded the position of a school prefect, a prestigious honor, especially in St. Thomas' College in Mount Lavinia.
I think that Palitha really believes that Sri Lanka has its best days in front of them, much like Ronald Reagan did many years ago in the United States. I think that is what's motivated him to not remain in the US and return back to his home country to serve in a way that I think even he does not know how it's going to befall him in the future, it'd be fair to say. I've tried to press him on many issues, and there are times at Palitha, you don't press any further. And I think the best days are definitely in front of him for that. I was thinking Sri Lanka and India have been linked throughout its entire history, especially in the last 50 or 60 years. We have gone through colonialism under the British. We attained independence together around the same time, 47, 48. We have gone through the first prime ministers, female prime ministers in the world. We've gone through an experiment in socialism. We've gone through emergency rule. We have gone through insurgencies. We've gone through terrorism. We've gone through a brain drain. And most of that is here today. And I think as India now has emerged as an economic superpower, we hope that Sri Lanka will come out of the shadows and now also take its rightful place as a global destination for trade. And as you know, is the #1 exporter of tea in the world, and it will export multiple natural resources, gemstones, and I think with peace comes prosperity, and I would like to say that whatever your next chapter in life is, Palitha, I know that you will help change the world where you go forward. With that, I want to say Istuti, gracias, grati, merci, danke, salam alaikum, shalom, and next year in Colombo. Thank you.
Ooh, good about myself from my very first kiss. I'm here when you call, you got it all, and confidence like I never knew. You're the perfect man for me. I love you, I do. You got charm, you simply disarm me every time. As long as you drive, I'm along for the ride your way. You said it before, there won't be a door that's close to us. I'm putting all my trust in you, 'cause you'll always be true.
And for me tonight is not about another farewell, it's about celebrating all of his achievements. Palitha is a distinguished academic. He has an LLB like me, but even better than me, he has an LLM from ANU in Australia, and he has a doctorate from Cambridge. I understand at Cambridge he also played cricket, like a normal Sri Lankan would. And I understand that he did well there. He's also an attorney of the Supreme Courts of Sri Lanka. I am deeply grateful to Palitha for helping me when I arrived in 2002 to take up my post as Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Papua New Guinea to the United Nations. You know, in cricket, except for the T20s and the one-day 50 overs, Test cricket has to still be the best form of cricket, right? Yes? Of course. And actually we have 2 innings. But I would suggest to you that Palitha has many innings. He batted for his country. And as Dr. Timothy Jayasundara alluded to, it was a very, very critical part of the peace process. Not an easy job, and something that he came back to push, to be the face of, and to advocate for Sri Lanka at the United Nations. My friend Palitha, Test cricket might have 2 innings, but your life has many, many more innings. And you're still batting. You're not as good as Sangakkara, right? Not as good as Jayasuriya. But like them, you're a great Sri Lankan.
When I came to New York, I was representing what in effect was a military government. We had yet to have a parliamentary election. The head of government of that government that asked me to come here was subsequently elected last year in general elections, which were supervised by 100 international observers led by India, Indonesia, and Australia, and he received a 60% majority. So I stand before you as a legitimate, democratically elected government. And I mention that for one reason in particular. When I did come here, I felt I was under the cosh. And a couple of countries, I mentioned them, pretty much poisoned my country's wells here at the United Nations. And I needed some advice from friends. And during those difficult first couple of years that I had here, there was one guy who I always knew I could go and see to get good advice. And he became very much a mentor to me. And Palitha, I want to thank you here in front of all these people for the wise advice that you gave me. And I took that advice not just because you proved to be such a true friend, but because you were representing a country which had its own controversies and which was being put under the same kind of international pressure. But I had so much admiration for your country that you had brought this long, bloody civil war to an end, and that since the end of that civil war, there had been no more bloodshed. And I just found this such a joyous thing, and I so sympathized with the struggles that you were going through. So thank you, Palitha, for that mentoring that you gave me. You to me were the epitome of an ambassador who during tough times comes to the United Nations and stands and delivers. He defends his country, and you did it so well. Congratulations.
Now, he was coming in 1995 as the head of the treaty section. And the good news is that he automated the treaty section. I mean, that was at the forefront of all of the automation. We basically had huge databases, and he was justifiably proud, and I think it was mentioned already, he won a prize for it. I was at that time a director in the Department of Public Information, and we had to publish what he basically had as a treaty series. And I will tell you that he was a pest, because every month he sent me a memo, and he said, you haven't done X, Y, Z. And he kept track, as a good lawyer would, and basically telling me, you're behind. We all have to work together. And so, and still, we became very good friends. And I think that's a credit to his diplomatic ability.
Matale also was the site of a great rebellion in the 1850s. There was this famous Sri Lankan hero called Veerapuranappu, who had a rebellion against the British garrisons there and overran the garrisons in Matale and Kandy. And really, he was not from Matale, probably he was from Moratua, Miran's hometown, but he really came up to the Central Province, married Biso Manika, and that's another story. So, I mean, a lot of people bring with them from where they hail, that sort of, their character is eventually shaped from where they originated. And I think a little bit of that spirit of Veerapuranappu I see in Palitha. I mean, he has this very placid or calm exterior, but that's really not what he really is. There is a lot of fire in his belly. When he really is after a cause, or if he believes in a cause, he really goes after it. And a lot of his diplomatic career and the things that he done is shaped with that fire in his belly that he has. It's the fact that we have so many ambassadors here speaking so eloquently about him speaks a lot for what he has achieved in really making these relationships that have not only helped Sri Lanka to stand its own against a lot of pressure from various countries who tried to dabble in the internal affairs of this country, but we were able to hold our own and keep our heads high. And a lot of that is due to the hard work that put in by you, Dr. Kohona. Thank you.
So I'd like to wish Palitha all the best. And when I asked him the other day whether there are any chance of his coming back, he said he'd like to echo the words of Douglas MacArthur, who said, "I shall return." I told him it would be more appropriate to quote the more famous quote by Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, "I'll be back." So Palitha, we are hoping that you will come back, if not as ambassador, at least you will come as another Secretary General to the UN. And all the best.
Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good. It well may be that we may never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship blown from its mooring by the waves of the sea, like a sea drop by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
I would like to first read the contents of this plaque. It says, we have the emblem of the United Nations on the top, and then on the left is the Sri Lankan flag, and on the right is a US flag. We say, and I'm reading it on behalf of all Sri Lankans and other friends here, and we are not leaving out anybody. The Sri Lankan community in the USA is privileged to honor His Excellency Dr. Palitha Kohona, Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka to the United Nations, 2010 to 2015. He served his motherland as an exemplary diplomat with dedication, commitment, and often beyond the call of duty, and that everybody knows. His service exemplified the finest diplomatic traditions, and with great pleasure, I present it now to Dr. Kohona.
Let me say thank you to all of you for the kind things you have said tonight. It makes me humble, it humbles me to know that you feel that way about me. And then of course, all of you who are here tonight, I hope not to say goodbye. First of all, working at the United Nations first as part of the Secretariat was an inimitable, incomparable experience. First of all, you had the opportunity to interact with some of the best people you ever want to interact with. The UN is special, and it's a dream for me to have had the opportunity to work there. I recall that when I graduated when I was in my 20s, my first dream was to work for the United Nations. Of course, the United Nations wouldn't take me. I was too inexperienced. Degrees didn't really matter. Your experience mattered. I understand it now with maturity, but those days I thought, how arrogant of them to have rejected me. So I went into the foreign service, and after some years of experience, I didn't get into the United Nations. And I'll tell you that one thing, that going to work every day was a privilege and a matter of pride for me. Because whatever I did in my own small way had an impact on somebody's life somewhere. And that was the important thing. Angela Kane would relate to this. People criticize us at the UN for wasting money, for being slow, not getting things done, people dying everywhere, etc. But what we get done is what is important. We get done a lot of things. And these things are rarely ever acknowledged, rarely ever recognized. We know what we do. I know what we did. Getting the UN Treaty series on the web was a huge, mammoth task. 50,000 plus treaties and 500 plus multilateral conventions. These were things that established the legal order for the entire world. These were the documents that established the rules that we are expected to live by, to play by, and abide by. And all that is now on the web. And for me, that was my humble contribution to humanity. And then, of course, there was the other cloud. And there, of course, the annual glamour event of the United Nations, which every country now looks forward to, the annual treaty event. The first event was in the year 2000, the Millennium General Assembly. When I mooted this idea that we should get visiting heads of state and government to come along to the United Nations to undertake treaty actions, bind their countries to global standards, there was a lot of opposition. They thought this would be a distraction. My argument was that the 15-minute speeches that great leaders make at the United Nations are shredded by the end of the day. Those papers are shredded. The speeches are forgotten. The sentiments do not even enter the annals of history. But a legal action undertaken at the United Nations is something that will stay forever. And in that first treaty event, despite all the reservations of many of my colleagues at the highest levels, we had 89 countries, 89 heads of state. The likes of Tony Blair, Jacques Chirac, Schroeder, the Indian Prime Minister at the time, wandering into my office and undertaking treaty actions, signatures, ratifications, etc. Today, it is an event that is looked forward to by every head of state who comes to New York for the annual General Assembly. So, but then, in addition to all that, there are others in the organization who risk their lives, and many of them have died in the process, to go and maintain peace in conflict areas, to negotiate peace between protagonists. There are those who, even as I speak, are risking their lives in West Africa, fighting Ebola. There are those who have successfully contained the AIDS epidemic. These are things that we don't talk about, because good news doesn't deserve headlines. It's only the bad news that deserves headlines. Wherever the UN apparently fails, you get a headline. You get the New York Times, the Washington Post, screaming about it. But wherever we succeeded, there's very little talk about it. But we have at least those who have worked for the United Nations have the satisfaction of knowing that we made a contribution to making this world a better place. And I think that was the dream that we followed. Later on, I joined the Sri Lankan Foreign Service, not at an easy time, as has been said many times before. We were in the midst of an unwinnable war. Happily, that conflict is over now. The country is at peace, and we have only the future to look forward to. The economy is booming, tourism is going through, the tourism intake is going through this roof, and everything seems to be heading in the right direction. Reconciliation, which everyone talks about, is happening slowly, but methodically it is happening. And my hope is that the next time I address a crowd of this nature anywhere, I wouldn't have to talk about a conflict in Sri Lanka. I will be talking about a country that is doing well, that is booming, and where the people are generally happy. You cannot make everyone happy all the time, but you can make most people happy some of the time at least.
I thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for your devotion to our land and its people. This evening, we are gathered to pay our respect to you, sir. Of course, no event goes without careful planning. I would like to thank those of you who have contributed so generously to make this farewell dinner possible, and to those of you who have helped coordinate it. Specifically, I would like to thank those individuals and corporations that have given so charitably